As you may know, every 2 weeks, FAB gives away some fantastic free assets that you can keep forever. I'm challenging myself to create a game using only those assets in just 24 hours. But here's the twist. I'll be spinning a wheel to determine the genre each time, and whatever it lands on, that's the direction I have to go in. The end goal is to have 24 different unique games by the end of the year. So for the start of January, the free asset drop includes 2 environmental packs, an ancient temple, and some sci-fi hallways. It also includes a monster pack with 2 monsters, one its larvae form and one fully grown. The wheels landed on the one genre I was most dreading, a TCG. I have almost no experience with TCGs. Yeah, I'm out of my comfort zone a bit, and I don't have much experience at all, besides Duel Masters on PS2 and the Pokemon TCG Pocket on my phone. Okay, let's begin by going back to the start where I first learnt about these assets. We've got a big character, big monster, sci-fi corridor, and an ancient temple. It's good having 2 environment assets. Anyway, so you can just go add these to your cart and make sure that you get the professional license. Then you can just come up here and check out. Save $700, yes please. The second part of this is we're going to use pick a wheel and choose a random genre to base the game around. Let's see what we got. Okay, I have no idea how to do that. But now we can hide the choice. And so for next time, we never have to worry about a trading card game ever again. Okay, great. I haven't even played Balatro. I've got no idea what to do. Well, what? I don't know. I'm kind of stumped. I was actually thinking yesterday that I'm dreading the TCG and the fighting game probably the most, just because I have no idea how to approach it. But I'm glad I didn't really get the fighting game with these guys. Well, they're set up for attacks and stuff. Fighting game could be cool. What? How am I going to make a card game? Are you kidding me? I'll leave it there. And I'm going to start brainstorming some ideas. Alright, I've been thinking about this for a while, and here's my idea. Each player has a monster. Each player has a deck of cards. Each deck is from one of the environmental packs. So the card here I have for an example is the root card, which costs 3 mana to play, and it will give your monster +3 attack. So the idea is you play the cards to change the environment, which will buff your monster, and then at the end of your turn, the monster will attack your opponent's monster, doing the damage from the cards. And then at the start of your next turn, all of your previous buffs are wiped out, unless it's a spell card, which gives a permanent buff. Okay, so in this example, I have my environmental cards. This is my hand. I can do this. I can draw cards, I can make new cards. And then if I go to play the card, I'll drag it onto my monster. Bam. It's used, and then the asset will spawn in the world next to the monster. And then we can go here, and it will be +3 attack on player 1 monster. I end my turn. It attacks player 2 monster, 97 health. Then they end their turn, and so at the start of my turn, this is destroyed. This goes back to 0, and when you play the card, the mana cost will also be affected. It was like that. So that's my idea. It's simple enough that I think I can do this in 24 hours, but I still don't know where to start. So I'm just gonna play around in Engine and see if I can make something work. We have a game loop. So now we have future and past monster. At the top you can see the turn ends and it sets the current player, and it also attacks the opponent. So monster past has 18 HP left, and it's now player 1's turn, which is past. So now it's player 2 turn, and future has and this goes back and forth until bam, player 1 wins. I now have it so player 2 cannot interact when it's player 1's turn, and vice versa. You start, you draw 3 cards each. I can then play those cards. So I use that square, and then I can use the next card, then I can use the next card. And now all 3 of my cards from my hand are used, and they have all applied a buff to me. So I end my turn, and I attack the opponent. The opponent now has 18 health. Now it's the opponent's turn. Player 1 cannot attack or put down any cards. And now player 2 can use their cards, which then apply the buff to them. And now when I end my turn, they're evenly matched, but 2 HP, bam, player 1 wins. So that is essentially the core loop of the game. And it doesn't look like much now, but once I start using the asset to make some decks, I think it can work really nice. I've spent around 12 hours on the core mechanics, and now that we're finally in a good place, I think it's time we start adding in the actual fab assets. I started by creating a basic card UI and getting a proper card in hand effect working. There aren't many good Unreal Engine card game tutorials, but there is a great series from the dev realm, and it helps a lot with the UI side of things. Each card pulls its data directly from a data table, and from there it updates all of its relevant fields automatically. So when a card is created, all of its variables are set based on that data. I also added a hover animation to each card, changed the Z order so the hovered card comes to the front, and allowed the player to drag cards around the screen. With that in place, we can finally get a proper look at the monsters. So I replaced the default placeholder cubes with the actual monster assets and gave them animations, which immediately made everything feel more like a real game. For the card art, I took screenshots directly from the assets themselves. I wanted to avoid creating custom UI that wasn't included in the free packs, and I felt like using screenshots of the assets was a fair compromise. Ideally, I wanted nice scenic shots, but time was disappearing fast, so I stuck with the more basic images for now. I did make sure that the 2 legendary cards had better looking images though, so they still feel special. Decks themselves are entirely data driven and built using data tables. Every card attribute is defined there. I chose not to add card descriptions because the card UI was already getting pretty busy and I wanted to keep things readable. This is the card UI. Everything you see here can change dynamically depending on which card is drawn. I also added proper UI elements for the player stats, so I don't have to rely on debug text anymore. That said, this part is currently broken. I'm hoping it's just something hooked up incorrectly, otherwise it means that the cards aren't buffing the correct monsters, which is not ideal. At this point, each player now has their own visible hand. Getting the initial draw of 3 cards working took way longer than it should have. Every card was being added to the player 1's hand at first, even when it wasn't their turn. Weirdly enough, every draw after that would work perfectly. So I made a hacky solution and I got it to work. There's also an issue where the card offset is being applied to both players' hands, which means there are gaps where your opponent's cards would be displayed. And then the final mechanic, drag and drop. I spent hours trying to get drag and drop working so you can summon cards properly. Right now I'm just using debug keys to play the first 3 cards in your hand instead. Every time I got close with drag and drop, I ended up breaking something else. It really feels like I'm just missing one obvious thing. But that said, the 24 hours are up. The second set of January assets are just about to be released, and I still need to make this video. Knowing that I was so close but didn't quite get there is honestly pretty upsetting. At the same time though, I'm excited to look back at this in a year's time and see how much I've learned and improved. Maybe I'll even come back and finish this properly. But for now, I'll make a few small environmental changes just to put together a short showcase reel. And that's where this project ends. Thanks for watching. The goal is to release one of these challenges every fortnight, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And if you have any feedback, whether it's ideas, improvements, or things I can do better, please leave a comment. Until next time, bye bye.